We here at Bloodhound Pix would like to highlight non-film works that we're currently enjoying. Some old, some new, some obscure, and some popular, but they're all outside cinema.
So this edition of Outside the Cinema, I bought Brightmares, the art of Alex Pardee, who is the artist who did all the creature design for Digging Up the Marrow. So obviously I saw that movie and thought his art was awesome, and I've been following him on like Instagram and whatever, and went ahead and bought this book. I'm not sure if it's his first book or what, but it's his most recent one. It's pretty cool. It's got really awesome illustrations, and then it's got some of these like have a story to go along with the drawing, which is cool. And it's also got, it's like a double-sided book, so one half is this Deadlines, the back half, and the first half is Brightmares. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty good art. It's pretty cool to look at. I like read the whole thing. It's not very long. It's just a couple of short stories with illustrations, but definitely worth checking out. So check it out.
We will.
Yep.
Okay.
Pardee's got some cool stuff.
Yeah. His just all the colors with crazy monsters. It's fucking awesome.
Welcome to our Indie-stry Chat. The members of Bloodhound Pix and an occasional guest give their no BS experiences with current aspects of the industry for people looking to break in or make their own production company. Okay, so let's move on to our Indie-stry Chat. That's what I called it, but we could call it
No, we're calling it that.
Good. Play on words. Tons. So this little section, we're gonna kind of talk about issues that pop up for people currently trying to break into the industry or create an independent production company. And coming from kind of a real kind of no BS perspective. And so this time around, we actually want to discuss the idea of screenwriting festivals or screenplay competitions. And so I know Kyle is dying to talk about this. So the idea is that like the issues that arise with certain ones, as for lately, especially since we talk about through this site or through this podcast a lot of horror and more genre filmmaking, a lot of horror competitions and even conventions and festivals in general, because of it becoming more mainstream, have been popping up all over. Really every major city probably has its own horror convention now or festival, and those festivals then do the competitions. So what are the issues with that? And then like, are they worth it? Because you're dropping, for at the cheapest $10, but usually it's somewhere between 30 to 50, if not more. So Kyle, if you want to begin.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. Yeah, I think because there are so many, and there are so many people of questionable there's so many festivals of questionable value, I guess I would say. I don't think they're necessarily trying to take advantage of people, but they're also creating a situation that's really not going to benefit someone who is like a novice in the industry to go to whatever, city's little dinky horror festival. Even if you win, it's like, are there going to be people there that you're going to mingle with that are going to actually help your career? Or did you spend $50 to go have a cool, go to a cool event and get a piece of paper with your name on it, and you're right back where you started? That's one thing, which I think I think there's so many of those festivals now that it's obviously somewhat difficult to weed out what's worth it and what's not, unless it's one of the really big festivals where okay, like Austin Film Festival, there's going to be real people there. If you win or place or whatever, it's going to be worth it. Or the Nickel Fellowship, which, of course, is just looking for the next great horror script, not. Or whatever, there's like the really big ones, but then there's so many other ones that it's like, is it worth it? I don't know. If you take your script and send it to 20 festivals, that's a good, I don't know, $50 a festival, you figure. It's a good like $1,000 maybe. It's a lot of money to invest, especially when a lot of them, you don't know. It's questionable whether you're really going to get anything out of it. The other thing is who the readers are. Because I'm sure you guys have had this experience, but I've had the experience where you get notes back that are, night and day from each other. Someone thinks your script is hilarious. The other person thinks it's a tragedy. The other person thinks it's this, and you're just kind of like, who the fuck are these people reading this? What is going on? I don't know.
No, since you brought up a lot of good points, I'll first kind of talk about for me, the reader aspect. So we'll go into it, and it's kind of in our bio for those of you listening, that the three of us met through screenwriting, our screenwriting MFA program. And that in no way, obviously the preface of that doesn't say that we're the greatest screenwriters, that we know everything about it. It's just that's where we kind of met up and kind of learned about, certain aspects of formatting, certain, those things that comes with that. So for me, a lot of times, especially with a script that kind of just got done doing all the circuit or the competition thing, which both of them have had to read many times because of our writers group stuff, going through that and providing that to like certain people. And while I was starting to make it and set it up, it was kind of told, okay, well, it needs to be this way and you need to follow, this format or this thing. And then you would send it in. And for example, with, I believe it was both Josh and I submitted to, I don't know if we should give names of the festival, but it was a screenwriting competition where we both submitted it in the same, for the same time period. And I got a lot of notes back that talked about the idea of capitalizing sound effects. Or if you're going to put a sound effect, don't put it, this came from one of our professors, don't put it before the action. However, for Josh and Kyle, they never received that one, even though all three of us have done it. And even for the festival portion, Josh never received that thing. And so then it becomes this idea for me with readers about, well, should there be, yes, I understand the idea of it being subjective in terms of personal taste. Like if I'm not really going to go and enjoy necessarily, romantic comedy as much, but I can at least, in theory, go in and say, okay, well, this works. So should it be that readers just have a set kind of rubric or something where it's like, it doesn't matter if you like it, doesn't matter if it's meant to be funny or not, if it's whatever, which I know Kyle can get into with his recent thing about humor levels in a script, but does it work based on this rubric? And every single one of these readers has this rubric or something, just to have some sort of consistency, I guess, is what the question I'm bringing up, and some of the issues that I found with the reader portion. And so I don't ramble too much, I'll open that part up to the two of you.
Kyle, do you want to continue on your fucking angry ranting?
I mean, I was gonna let you say something if you have anything.
I mean, you guys are basically. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much more I can contribute to what has been said already because, it's not like either one of you are wrong. And I guess I will mention for the reader thing. I feel like it's going to depend if the person or people who did the reading, if they like your story, if they like your script, I'm talking personally like it, then you're probably going to get some recognition. Obviously that shouldn't make any difference. But I feel like it does. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. So, I mean, that's my feeling about readers, and part of that is due to the fact somebody who we both know didn't like a script of mine very much, and they despised, in fact, one specific scene in it, and yet Austin loved it. So, what I'm not going to say the person's name, but they know what the fuck they're talking about. But clearly they didn't know this because, the Austin readers loved it. So that's my 2 cents on who's doing the reading and who's making the decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. That goes back to the subjective thing where I think if they don't like it, then yeah, you're going to hear about it. And not only that, you're going to hear whatever Craig is talking about in terms of like technical kind of nitpicking that frankly, it's just like that stuff. The contest
doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter. I've read so many scripts that do so many different things, and it doesn't matter. Like a good story well told is a good story, and if it kind of draws you in, it's going to draw you in. And if you're sitting there going like that shouldn't be capitalized, then it's not working for you, obviously, because who cares? I don't know, but I mean I think that's the frustration, though, is that when you're spending money and you don't necessarily have a ton of money to invest in a thing, especially when it's some of the smaller festivals where it's probably not worth it anyways to give them the money, but you're trying to kind of build some kind of steam. Then when you get what you think are way off the mark notes, then it's like, well, what the fuck did I spend this money for? To hear some asshole tell me not to capitalize this and let this would make a great comedy when I wrote, like a drama or whatever, not a drama, but something that's not supposed to be funny. I think that's where it gets frustrating, which is what all I'm going to speak about is the frustrating rants that I can share. Craig?
No, I mean, I guess I agree with you, and I don't know. I believe it is one of those things, and when you normally get back for anybody that's received any rejection, which obviously, once you are submitting to enough of them, you're probably going to get, this is the rule of it, more rejection than you do positive or acceptance or whatever. But in the rejection, even for some of these bigger film festivals, it's almost, they send this letter where it'll say that they realize that the reading is subjective, and so they're acknowledging it within their own letter. And so it becomes that sort of issue. And the bigger festivals, obviously, you're dropping more money because there's higher stakes. But I guess going back to, since we kind of discussed that, going back to these little festivals doing it, where I understand the idea of screenwriting festivals or screenwriting competitions for a festival or convention perspective, because they don't have to, especially for a lower one, they don't have to spend the same amount of money they would by renting out a theater for a certain chunk of time to then play a film, where instead they can get that same promotion, they can get people invested, but through you just have some volunteers, or you even pay somebody a tiny bit amount just to do this reading. So I get the reason, because it's very beneficial financially for it. But then, it does bring up ultimately, are they worth it? Or because Kyle knows I've submitted to ones where I got in, and both him and I went to this festival to and it was a convention as well, to check it out. And while the convention aspect was fun, and there was a lot of horror icons, and you got to get merchandise and all that stuff, the festival portion, it seemed like they just kind of forgot about the screenwriting competition in a way, to the point where I've spoken about this before online, so I still don't want to point any names, but they your screenplay was in competition with screenplays of a movie that had already been produced, which we'll kind of get into with our other segment, where we talk about what could have been. But just as kind of a little explanation of it, and that we'll kind of describe more and more hopefully over the months, is that even a final draft versus a shooting script, or versus the final product of what the movie is, they are two different things. It's not necessarily, I don't know, apples and oranges, but it's like oranges and grapefruits or something. They're different. And I don't know. I'm rambling. I don't know how to explain it any better, but I don't know if you guys want to jump in.
I would just have to say that Craig is being as always, being very nice in saying that it seems like maybe they forgot about the screenwriting competition. Was like, no, they didn't even fucking acknowledge the screenwriting competition. They announced all these awards, and there's a small group of people for the screenwriting competition that are completely not acknowledged at all, and then told who won as if they had announced it when they didn't even announce it. But yeah, I mean, what he's trying to say is totally true as well, in terms of comparing having a finished film that is in the film festival and allowing its screenplay to compete with unproduced screenplays is quite ridiculous. Should at least have two different categories, but it's like, how can you not be influenced by the film that was actually made? Because then if you like the film that was made, which they obviously did because it had won other awards, and then to just say like, oh yeah, we're going to give that the screenwriting award too. And these other guys who fucking spent their money and came out to this place and just have a piece of, they have a script that no one can even look at this place, are just like, yeah, we took your money. This is also the place that fucking, you had to buy your award. The actual plaque, they were like, well, we didn't know if people wanted the plaque, so if you do, just let me know and you can send me, $40 and then I'll mail it to you. It's like, okay. Holy shit. So that speaks to the quality of that festival in a big way. I don't know. I mean, we have talked about this before, but there are definitely, and I've read articles, which I'm sure you guys have read too, of like festivals that are kind of out and out scams. But these other ones, like, I don't know that these guys are trying to scam us, but at best, they're just negligent. I mean, they're just taking people's money and kind of selling them an experience and an opportunity that's not really even available, and just kind of taking advantage of people, which I think is shitty, especially when it's aspiring artists of any kind who obviously don't have the money to be just throwing money away like that.
Josh, do you have anything else to say on it, or?
Well, it occurred to me that this is a good way of thinking about screenwriting competitions. Okay, this is a real easy algorithm. We all know that the script I sent to Austin last year, which is one of the biggest screenwriting competitions on the fucking planet, the script I sent them made it to the semifinals. I sent that same script to other less prominent competitions and didn't hear a fucking thing. So that's a really good way of looking at it because, you know, again, Austin is one of the biggest and most well-respected in the United States. I sent the same exact draft to other lesser known, and I'm talking like extremely lesser known, and didn't hear a fucking thing. So yeah, it's a crapshoot.
Okay, so without us trying to sound bitter or anything like that, which obviously you'll get when it's something that you are creating, what I think the major thing we want to talk about with this whole segment is, you know, coming from, as you said, aspiring artists and people that don't have the money in indie companies, like ultimately, is it worth it? And so to kind of wrap everything around, I like for the one that Kyle and I were just talking about, I think if you had a short film that you didn't really make for a lot of money and stuff like that, and you know it can get in, then like I'd say go for it. I kind of always heard a rule of thumb. The rule is that you know, when you're starting out, you send to, you know, a bunch of festivals that you know you can get into. You send like 50% of, or send a couple to ones that you have like a 50% chance, and then choose one or two of the incredibly big ones that you know you probably aren't going to, because but still at the end of the day, like Kyle was talking about, especially once you start getting into submitting films, which gets even more expensive, then that puts you at, you know, you're spending, you know, $200-300, if not more, on festivals. So are small festivals worth it? I mean, I would say do your research, and it just kind of depends on the experience I think you want to have ultimately. But most of all, yeah, do your research, and is what I would suggest. I don't know. I'll pass on to these two to wrap up. Kyle's probably gonna have maybe a different thing.
I mean, even more specifically, this is kind of my own personal viewpoint, and the way that I handle this shit is I look at not only, you know, the festival or the competition itself, but what are they going to give me? You know, I mean, if it's a fucking plaque, go fuck yourself. I'm not going to send you, you know, and pay the fee or whatever. And, you know, again, too, is there going to be anybody there, you know, that even if I don't win, that will potentially give me $1 million? You know, if it's something like that, that's why I went to Austin, because there were all kinds of those people there. So more specifically, look at what they're going to give you if you win, and also, you know, who might be there. If no one's going to be there, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I would agree with both these guys. I would just say it's I mean, it's a crapshoot. It's like playing the lottery. So you got to look at what you're gonna get, like Josh is saying, whether it's worth it, and who's associated with it, what the prizes are, and how long have they been around? What's their reputation? Because there are a lot of other there are plenty that are scams, and they've even been around like a couple years, and they're just kind of it's an easy way for people to make money too.
Okay, are those pleasantries through?
Yeah.
I think we helped the younger generation.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I feel like I have a really good grasp of this shit now.
so
Bloodhound Pix podcast is produced by Josh Lee, Craig Dram, and Kyle Hintz. Music by Raymond Seed. Audio editing by Kyle Hintz.